So I'm Rostam, the co-founder of Hydrova. Hydrova enables zero waste recycling of aluminum production waste byproducts that are called dross and salt cake. We'll get into more of where those come from later.
It sounds tasty.
Definitely. It's nasty stuff. But Hydrova's technology transforms these dross and salt cake waste byproducts into valuable products that can be used in industry, including aluminum alloys, low carbon cement, and green hydrogen. So yeah, excited to talk about aluminum, cement, hydrogen. But first, so how we got started into all of this. So I was studying engineering and entrepreneurship at MIT. Always knew I wanted to start a climate tech company since I grew up in California, witnessing the effects of climate change in my home state, from droughts to floods to wildfires, you name it. So fast forward to my senior year at MIT, that was when COVID struck. So this was actually in April and May of 2020. During the height of the pandemic. Right at the same time, I got a grant from MIT to work on aluminum-based hydrogen production. So that was what started this whole journey. That led to learning more about the aluminum industry, all about the problems with dross and these waste byproducts that come from the recycling process, and eventually adapting our technology to include zero waste recycling in addition to hydrogen production from aluminum.
You know, what I find is kind of interesting, I guess, with your company in particular is, you know, you're going in, and I think part of it, maybe we could spend a few minutes just on aluminum in general, because it is a substance that, if I'm not mistaken, we can continue to reuse again and again, right? Like, I really hope people, I say this a lot about like plastic water bottles. You know, this company, Liquid Death, hallelujah. Everybody should move in that direction, right? Because we produce, in 24 months, we will produce 1 trillion plastic water bottles, which cannot be reused. And so can you maybe take a few minutes and explain how your process works for the average person?
Absolutely. So yeah, to touch on aluminum first, aluminum is an incredibly strong and lightweight material. It's 1/3 the weight of steel, and that makes it be used widely in construction, transportation, packaging, many other applications. Aluminum is the most abundant metal in the Earth's crust, makes up about 8% of the Earth's crust. Of course, in nature, it's found as an ore and needs to be smelted, which uses energy. But once it has been smelted, aluminum is highly recyclable. So actually, over 75% of the aluminum that we've ever made is still in circulation today. Recycling is super sustainable, takes only 5% of the energy that it takes to smelt aluminum from ores in the first place. And like you said, we're seeing lots of plastic plastic packaging products be replaced with aluminum, like the Liquid Death cans, aluminum water bottles. All of this means that we're going to need to do more and more recycling as time goes on. The problem with recycling is that it creates this waste byproduct called dross. Dross comes from the top layer of molten metal in these recycling furnaces that are melting scrap. That top layer hardens and is constantly scraped off. And because we do so much recycling, which is great for the environment, millions of pounds of this stuff end up going to landfill every year in the US, which isn't so great for the environment. And Hydrova is on a mission to change that.
And you can see this on your website. It's just at hydrovatech.com. Right, you have this really good visual, and you see it just kind of getting scraped off. And today, that just goes to landfill? Nobody does a whole lot with that for the most part?
So the stuff that gets scraped off of the furnace has a little bit of entrained aluminum metal stuck to it. Maybe 5 to 15% of the material will be actual aluminum metal. 85-95% of the material is not aluminum. It's mainly aluminum oxide. Right now, the dross will sometimes get processed to recover a little bit of that aluminum, but the rest of it will go to landfill. So 85-95% of that stuff ends up being landfilled. Sometimes when there's not enough aluminum in there to make it worth processing, the dross just goes straight to landfill. Yeah. So in total, millions of pounds of dross or salt cake, which is what it's called after the aluminum's been removed from it, end up going to landfill every year.
Yeah, I always just think there's a lot of opportunity in our waste stream, you know, given how much the human population produces. You know, we've grown, to give you an idea, I think since I've been alive, now I'm dating myself, but I think we've 2x'd the world population. And then now I know in the US, the average consumer produces about 125,000 pounds of trash in a lifetime, right? And that's a lot. That's a lot of trash coming out the other side. And I think part of the challenge, of course, is kind of one of the things you're tackling is you got to kind of start to break these things up and understand, like, how can we reutilize our waste? I just think it's historically, I think a lot of this is piled up, and yes, we recycled and there's certain things like that. But I think part of the challenge is like the whole extraction process and what can you do?